500 miles. 500 miles. Great yes, song. I remember that song. I'm sorry, I can't see that far to see the.
I'm not making it up. I love that song.
A great
As a
song?
kid, yes.
Yeah.
I played it on a loop. You know, you put your CD on repeat.
Mm-hmm. No.
Do that with this song.
Never. Never would have put.
What would you put on repeat?
What year was this song?
Early 90s.
Early 90s. I would have put on Garth Brooks on repeat or something like that. I would have made a real hard transition from rap music to country music right about that time. If you'd asked me like 88, it would have been the music we were hearing earlier, Criss Cross, Make You Jump, Jump. And then I would have transitioned into Garth Brooks. It was a real
Brooks and Dunn
hard U-turn. Brooks and Dunn.
I went through a solid Brooks and Dunn phase about that point in my life.
My stepsisters went to see Brooks and Dunn this week in Dallas.
Really? They're still going?
Oh, they're going. They had Travis Tritt opening up for them.
Travis Tritt?
Yes.
Touring? Wow.
It was a great concert. Yes.
Awesome.
Shout out to Neon Moon.
Oh, I love that song.
It's a great song, isn't it?
Well, we got to get to the border down in where you're from.
We've all been to the border, right? You've been to the border.
Yeah, and there's a lot.
I've been to the border. I know you've been to the border.
I'm going to go back to the border probably this coming month, and there's a lot of action. And Peter Doocy, by the way, has been on this story and really making the White House very uncomfortable. Here he is pressing Jen Psaki on why the president will not go to the border. Listen.
Why hasn't President Biden ever visited the southern border?
What would you like him to do at the southern border, and what impact do you think that would have on the policies?
Why doesn't he want to go?
I don't think it's an issue of wanting to go. I think it's an issue of what's most constructive to address what we see as a challenging situation at the border and a broken immigration system.
Why is this the one crisis, then, that he thinks he can manage better from here without having seen it than going to the southern border and
I can assure you the president is well aware of what the challenges are in our broken immigration system, something he watched closely over the last 4 years.
I get so upset when they keep saying broken immigration system. Our system works. There's a lot of people right now who are in line to get into our country and do it properly and legally who are really ticked off that these people get to come in without following the law. The laws are there. There's a process. Maybe we could try to streamline that process, make it easier. But this is not what this is why the immigration process is broken, because this is unfair to those who are doing it properly.
Yeah, there's a lot to upset you in that clip right there. First of all, I think Jen Psaki's tone towards Peter Doocy is unacceptable because it's a perfectly legitimate question, and she acts like it's absurd for him to be asking why Biden hasn't visited physically the place, the source of this crisis, and then to, expand it beyond obviously what's taking place in front of our eyes to the broken immigration system. A good follow-up, by the way, is what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
What is it? What is the broken immigration system? Please describe that for me.
Well, they're trying to imply that it was someone else's problem, right? That it was that they inherited it and there's nothing they can do about it, which is total garbage. Joe Biden is an almost octogenarian. All right. He's been in government longer than we've been alive.
True.
He has never been to the southern border ever. That was the third time Peter Doocy had asked that question. The White House said, we'll get back to you. Never, ever, ever, even before he was a senator, has he visited the southern border. Not once. So he's saying, we can manage it from where we are. Does that mean let's not go check out hurricane disasters or flood zones? Or he's been to Iraq and Afghanistan like a dozen times because you got to see it firsthand to understand the war. But you won't go to the southern border, a system that they acknowledge at this point they believe is fundamentally broken, but you don't want to see it one time, and then you're going to condemn some guy on horseback because he's doing his job. I mean, that's the absolute and utter disconnect of this. They don't care. We know they don't care. They want to not care. They want it to be open. We get it. It's deliberate. But still, I mean, keep asking that question,
But there are real American citizens who live along that border or live even 200 miles from that border that are being infected by these policies. And they're really sick and tired of people in Washington, D.C. who think they can manage this or not manage it from Washington, D.C. And it has a real impact on how they get health care, on what kind of services are available in their town, with the crime in their town. This is a huge problem. Representative Crenshaw, who is from Texas, Dan Crenshaw, says that the problem is that they've undone every single Trump-era policy that the people living at the border know was actually working to make their lives better. Take a listen.
It seems like the only people he wants to hold accountable for the mess at the border is his own border agents for doing their job. He put them in this position. And then he lies about what they're doing. He lies about their actions. You can't imagine a worse leader right now. If you're trying to get a mass exodus from the Border Patrol, if you're trying to get them to quit and lose morale, then this is a great way to do it. You know who else isn't held accountable? All the people illegally crossing our border. All the unvaccinated, all the people with COVID, all the people infiltrating our country and lying about their asylum claims, they're not held accountable. But Biden doesn't care about that. Look, and we have to stop pretending like this is incompetence. This isn't incompetence. They're doing this on purpose.
He's absolutely right. They're doing this on purpose. Yeah. I saw someone on social media say, here's the appropriate analogy. This is an arsonist setting fire to a house, then blaming the firefighters for creating the fire. But I would just add to what Congressman Crenshaw had to say there, it would be also building it a lie, building it upon a lie. So saying the firefighters that show up with those fire hoses are actually spraying gasoline on the house. You know they're not. Everyone involved knows they're not. You know that wasn't a whip. You know they weren't whipping migrants. So why are you continuing to tell the lie? It's not incompetence. It's an agenda.
Is it going to catch up, though? Is it going to catch up to them? I mean, because they're telling us that what we're seeing is not happening.
Tell me how it catches up when, you know, we looked into the Biden not going to the border. Fox News did. They found one thing from 2014. Joe Biden took a trip to Guatemala in 2014. And you know what he talked about in 2014? Root causes. No, why does it not catch up to them? Because they use the same BS catchphrases over and over again, like they're going to address a problem they don't want to address. It doesn't catch up because no one ever holds them to account for it. So now Kamala Harris is on The View instead of actually addressing real causes, but she talks about root causes because it's all a sham.
Yeah, and instead of talking about the open border, they're talking about America being systemically racist and our law enforcement being racist. Yes. Well, meanwhile, the FBI is investigating an assault on a female service member by a group of Afghan refugees being housed at Fort Bliss.
Oh, man. Officials confirming the incident was reported at the Donna Ana complex in New Mexico earlier this week.
Alexandria Hoff joins us live with the latest on the investigation. Alexandria.
Well, good morning. This service member reported that this assault took place last Sunday, the 19th, and involved a small group of male evacuees. Again, she was on the ground at the Fort Bliss's Donna Ana complex, which is a pop-up Army camp on the New Mexico side of the base. It was expanded to accommodate thousands of Afghan refugees. Fort Bliss officials told me they immediately took the allegation very seriously and referred it to the FBI, adding in a statement, quote, "The safety and well-being of our service members as well as all of those on our installations is paramount. Task Force Bliss is also implementing additional security measures to include increased health and safety patrols, additional lighting, and enforcement of the buddy system at the Donna Ana complex." Now, New Mexico Congresswoman Yvette Herald tweeted this, quote, "My prayers are with the courageous soldier and her family. This is yet another tragic failure in the vetting process for Afghan nationals. The American people deserve answers." And this comes on the heels of a situation out of Wisconsin's Fort McCoy, where 2 Afghan refugees have been indicted on federal crimes, including sexual assault on a minor and domestic assault. Republicans are still pressing the Biden administration for more details on the vetting process. Guys, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you,
Alexandria.
Thank you. So disturbing.
And when we know that most of the people that we evacuated were not SIV applicants or citizens, just at-risk Afghans, which means they probably hadn't spent as much time with Americans as those who are SIV holders, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, it is a huge cultural issue that we're dealing with. And as you know, we don't do a very good job of assimilating immigrants anymore. There used to be a time that we actually did. We don't do that anymore, and this is a massive problem.
For sure.
And now we move on to this story. Of course, the line for quite some time is the Biden administration follows the doctors, follows the scientists. That ruse has been exposed over the past couple of weeks as an FDA panel voted against COVID booster shots. By a 16-2 margin, they said the data was not in to support pushing COVID booster shots at large throughout this country. And yet the Biden administration has pushed forward with booster shots. CDC Director Rochelle Walensky has been a part of that. She has said and overrode that ruling. She has said it's time for booster shots. Watch.
And this week, as planned, we took a key step in protecting the vaccinated with booster shots, which our top government doctors believe provides the highest level of protection available to date.
I want to be very clear that I did not overrule an advisory committee. I listened to the votes, I listened to the comments on the votes, and this was a scientific close call.
Such a lie!
I'd like to be clear, I didn't do exactly what I did.
It's so insane.
I didn't overrule it. I ignored it.
Here's what we know. Exactly. There was a date certain when they wanted these booster shots to be approved. Biden loves date certain. Just ask the Taliban in Afghanistan. If it's fixed, it's happening, right? So the science doesn't matter. And then there's all these stockpiles of vaccines. They were going to use them either way. So there was the vote 16-2. Then there was another vote 9-6. She said, I'm overruling all of that. And ultimately now it effectively means that anybody who wants a booster shot can get it, which means mandates are eventually coming after that. It's not just the vulnerable. It's not just the elderly. It's anybody.
Right.
But if the New York Times is calling them out, then you know they got ahead of the science a little bit. Here's the headline from the New York Times. Biden promised to follow the science, but sometimes he gets ahead of the experts. Here's the quote. Mr. Biden and some of his team have been ahead of the nation's top public health scientists who have emphatically said in recent days that there is simply not enough evidence to suggest that boosters are necessary for the entire American population. The announcements by Mr. Biden and Dr. Walensky did not sit well with all of the scientists who advised them, raising questions about the president's pledge to always follow the science.
You know, I don't like the language in that. Even pointing out the president is ahead of the science. That implies
he's
science is
scientific. He's smarter than the scientists.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's better than the science. They'll catch up to Biden. They'll catch up. Don't worry. And by the way, they're probably right. They will catch up. The quote-unquote science will end up following the political determination. What we really should be talking about is facts and data. Do they support? I don't want to hear about the science anymore. The science has become, all capitalized, the science. I want to know about the data and the facts and the research and the studies that show this is something that is not political, but is actually good for our health.
I want to know also the why. Why is Joe Biden and his, CDC director, Walensky, why are they pushing this? Why do they care so much about this? Some people say, my husband believes that it's just the politics, that they have to look like they're doing something because COVID's the only hope they have for, looking like they're the only policy that they could actually look like they're doing something good on, because everything else is falling apart. And so if they can say, we're the ones pushing for vaccines, everyone get a jab in the arm, and then when it comes down, they can say, oh, it's because we did this. Maybe it's politics, but I also think when you have a company like Pfizer, for example, who's made just so far this year $11.5 billion, they're on in revenue. They're on par right now to make. They're projected to make $33.5 billion this year. That is just Pfizer. Forget Moderna's stocks a year ago were like $46. Now they're like $400 and some a share. So there's a lot of people making a lot of money. And many of these people are also donors to the Democrats and to Republicans as well. So there's a financial incentive around this as well. We need someone at the CDC. We need somebody, at the NIH who's putting the science and the health of Americans first. And I'm just confused.
Could be both. It could be both. I mean, feed the fear. I mean, Bill Maher had that point where if you poll Democrats, 70% of them think you're likely to be hospitalized if you get COVID above the 20% level, when the actual data is between 1% to 5% is the likely. If you've whipped up so much fear, you have to keep feeding that fear. People, there's a portion of the population that's clamoring for that. Because they think it's at, I'm with both sides of that. Listen, therapeutics are a dime a dozen. They're like 1 cent a
there's no money to be made from ivermectin.
So there's something to be said for what you're saying, but there also is politically, you look around and they say this is the only thing we can attempt to double down on. It's all we got.
But the long-term effects for public trust in public health is staggering.
Staggering. The number for Republicans, by the way, is also very high. 70% for Democrats that might think hospitalization is way above the actual numbers. Republicans is way above as well. Fear is rampant and fear is contagious. Your question is the right one. We just don't have the answer for it. Why are these measures being pushed? Is it for political control, political initiative? Is it for political divisiveness to continue to pit people against one another? Is it a way for more compliance, to have a population that ultimately needs and follows its government? Is it corruption? Is it financial? The only thing we know for sure, to answer your question, is it doesn't seem to be. There's no evidence that it is following the science. It is, the answer to your question is something besides science and public health.
I wish our mainstream media would care about this story and all these facets of it, because I think the public just needs to get some answers.
If only there was a mainstream media. I think we're the mainstream media.
Yeah, I do too.
They're just all a bunch of lefties. We know that. All right, turning now to your headlines. The man accused of carrying out a deadly mass shooting at a Tennessee Kroger had ties to the store. Police say Ook Tang was a third-party vendor for the supermarket. Tang allegedly walked into the Colleyville store and opened fire, killing one and wounding 14 others before killing himself. Several victims remain in serious condition. Aliva King lost her life in the shooting. She leaves behind 3 sons. 2 of them are U.S. troops. And a live look at Capitol Hill, where the House voted to codify Roe v. Wade, trying to enshrine abortion into our code. The bill guarantees access to abortions and protects medical professionals from any limitations that states and local governments have sought to impose. The bill is not expected to pass the Senate. This comes as Texas enforces its new law banning abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy. And Prince Harry and Meghan Markle visit a New York City school to promote early literacy. Meghan sported a $7,500 designer pantsuit and around $300,000 worth of jewelry for the austere visit. Around 95% of the students at the Harlem school face economic hardship. She read to the children from her own book, The Bench. Today, Harry and Meghan will attend the Global Citizen Live event in Central Park. And those are your headlines. That says
it all, right? Global citizen, the elite showing up at this school.
Bedazzled to read her own book to the masses.
Your fancy outfit.
By the way, I mean, I get the jewelry. Like, the jewelry is really nice. I didn't think the outfit was that great, like, to be that expensive. So, just saying. All right. Well, anyway, TikTokers are finding stock market success. Their winning strategy? They're just copying the investments from members of Congress.
Plus, Biden takes a dig at the American press.
The Indian press is much better behaved than the American press. I got to watch out.
But does he really have a leg to stand on to criticize the media? Joe Concha is here, and he reacts.
Oh, the walk-on is back.
It's back.
There seems to be something happening here that I'm not 100% aware of.
I need the two of you to step off for a second.
And we'll tell you why.
More information later. It's a tease.
We'll tell you why in a couple of minutes. So shall I introduce the vice president?
Yes.
Okay. So, vice president, no.
Absolute chaos. Vice President Harris was supposed to be on set during The View yesterday, but that didn't go as planned after co-hosts Anna Navarro and Sunny Hostin tested positive for COVID-19 during the show. Harris had to be interviewed remotely instead from a closet inside the studios, apparently, while the border crisis spirals out of control. Fox News contributor Joe Concha joins us now on set with his take. Joe, there's so much to break down here.
Yeah.
When did these tests come back? Why did they come back during the middle of the show? Why were they physically separated, then immediately out of the blue booted off the set? When you look at all of this, what do you make of it?
I make of it, my wife's an ER doctor. She literally administers COVID tests, has for the past 20 months. I don't understand. When you have the second most powerful person in the country, Kamala Harris, in your studio, you're taking your COVID tests. How long before the show? Because from what I understand, it takes 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes to get those test results back. So did they take these tests 2 minutes before they went to air?
Right.
So then for them to be on set and then to be dragged off, and no one also talks about Whoopi Goldberg wasn't there as well. Now, Joy Behar said she had sciatica and she couldn't come in. But again, you have Kamala Harris there. So their 3 of your 5 hosts aren't there after the first 10 minutes of the show. And then Kamala Harris for a half hour, you don't know where she is, because she was somewhere in the building. She eventually joins from what looks like a storage closet. You'd think ABC would have another studio laying around, but no. All of it just led to complete and total chaos, as you say. It was a train wreck. And then when we finally got to questions, Will, those were train wrecks as well, because there you had the vice president not asked about those drone strikes in Afghanistan, about the FDA not approving booster shots when the Biden administration said they would be coming. You could go on and on. The French ambassador excusing himself from the United States. All of those things couldn't be asked about. It was all to give the vice president confidence at a time where she's polling at 35%.
And you know, Joe, I mean, it just shows the charade, the kabuki theater, the falsehood of this entire enterprise, because the remaining hosts left on set, they would have been exposed to Anna and Sonny. Contact tracing would have required that they be kicked off the set as well. So I don't understand what was being accomplished through this entire chaos. Not much.
And remember, by the way, Joy Behar, throughout the entire show after, kept coughing loudly over and over again. She's nearly 80. If there's anybody who get off the set, it's her. But no, she stayed.
Well, here's you mentioned the interview with Vice President Harris and the lack of tough questions on any important issues that this country is facing. And here's why: because the administration is just not used to facing difficult questions. And here's Joe Biden talking about that, talking about, in essence, the tame American press. Watch this.
What we're going to do is bring in the press. The Indian press is much better behaved than the American press. I got to watch out. And I think, with your permission, we should not answer questions because they won't ask any questions on point.
He says the American press is unruly. You should visit Great Britain or some other country with a really confrontational press.
Yeah.
And he's begging for a more behaved press corps.
Wow, you want to play a game where you close your eyes and then you think it's 2019 again? And if Donald Trump ever said that with a foreign leader, it would be a chilling attack on the free and fair press. That's what we'd be hearing. And the president could speak that way about the American press because he knows he can get away with it. He did it last week with Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, where Johnson said, I think I'd like to take questions. And then Biden says, good luck. And then in the middle of one of Johnson's answers, here you have the White House communications team led by Jen Psaki screaming at reporters to get out of the room to protect their guy. Because to your point, he won't answer the tough questions. But here's the thing. It ain't working well. He's at 31% approval in Iowa, 38% approval Georgia, 40 as in 40% approval in Florida, North Carolina, 41% approval in Pennsylvania. If those numbers are remotely like that, because these are Democratic-leaning polls, when we get to 2022 and 2024, bye-bye House, bye-bye Senate, bye-bye Joe Biden, Kamala Harris.
Those are fascinating numbers. And the issues are there, the crises are there to back up that opinion. Joe, my opinion is you did a very good job this morning. Thank you so much.
And Rachel and Pete, you're all the mainstream media. I agree.
Right.
Great job.
All right, man. I'll see you later.
All right, man.
All right. Officers ambushed as gunmen opened fire in the middle of the day. We'll show you the shocking attack on police, and President Biden goes against the facts, condemning border agents for allegedly whipping migrants. Our next guest has been on the ground, and he separates fact from fiction. Next.